it's more than what she said. She looked at one side of it, the growing frustration, the growing fear, the anger, you know. Hey, but there's another thing that's also been going on since 2016, and that has been the growth of our capacity to organize. After the election, it started with the Women's March, you know, which was a huge undertaking, you know, a woman led protest like, you know, people have never seen before. I'm a child of the 60s. I know I don't look that old,
You
but
don't.
I'm a child of the 60s. And I remember, you know, the civil rights marches of 250,000. I remember the anti-war marches of 250,000. But they weren't sustainable. Uh, we never consolidated our power, you know, that we had. What I'm seeing now and what I'm seeing, you know, is different. And why I think what Amber said, people are not going to be so easily placated, is this level of organization. It's not led by, at the time, young white men, what I'd consider young white men, you know, or now old white men. It's being led, and you know, by women and women of color. You know, I go down to a lot of the climate stuff, the climate strikes, led by women, young women of color, some of them in high school, standing up in front of, you know, 25,000 people in Philadelphia and taking charge and giving order. So, you know, our capacity to organize has increased. Not just our anger, but our actual capacity to organize and maintain and sustain this stuff has increased. And that's what gives me hope. That's what gives me, faith, you know, in the future, that the women and the young women and the young people and the people of color are not going to make the same mistakes that I made. You know, they're not going to say, okay, you know, we won, you know, let's go home and, you know, do whatever it was we were doing before. Um, they're in it to win it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's my hope and it's my belief that, you know, the leadership and the leadership is deep. You know, it's not just that there's one leader. It's not like that there's one person that could be bought off or God forbid assassinated and everybody goes home. This movement is as deep as it's wide, and it's as tough as it's strong. It's not just numbers.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and I think you're definitely right. We're seeing, and you know, I had the privilege to be at the Women's March with my daughter, and sort of by happenstance, but it was definitely a life-changing experience. It really has molded how I think and feel about activism and what that means and uniting with other people. And I think what we're seeing too is a collision of Black Lives Matters, Women's March, you know, the all kinds of movements all coming together saying we're all suffering under the same institutions, so we're all going to unite and help each other with our activism. And I think we are seeing that, which it also gives me great hope for, you know, my kids' future and what we have to look forward to. It's going to be a long road and it's going to be hard work. These institutions don't go down on their own. They don't get rebuilt on their own. They don't get, revised or modified or restructured on their own. It takes a lot of hard work. But what we're seeing is not just movements, we're seeing new ways of living in our communities. We're seeing people who are taking active roles with their community members, who are taking action to help. I think about when the immigration issue was really happening, and my dogs are going to lose their minds again. I'm sorry. When the issue with immigrants from Mexico and from South America or Central America were being locked in cages, and think about how many African Americans, how many Black, how many white, how many from people from all over, from all different backgrounds, united to stand against that and to march against that. And now we're seeing Hispanics joining with the Black community and joining with the Women's March movement. And I think we're going to see, we're not just here for a day or 2 or 7 or 14 or 32. We're here for a lifetime. And that's what we need to build these institutions into, is institutions that work for us, for all of us, for our lifetime. And we may build them, and at the end of our time, the next generation may say, you know what, this doesn't work for us.